Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Omani farmers succeed in using innovative techniques to improve quality of agricultural products. The United Nations warns that Syrian refugees' plight will lead to a catastrophic situation due to the decrease in humanitarian aid. And Ben Omar continues his efforts to resolve political crisis in Yemen and warns against continuing power struggle. Those were the headlines. Now for the news in detail. To save water and achieve the concept of food safety in the Sultanate, the members of Batna Agriculture Society succeeded in using innovative agricultural techniques to develop this sector by using greenhouses to improve the crop's quality. The investment in agriculture sector was considered a great significance for the local economy. Efforts are being exerted in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries Wealth to export crops outside the Sultanate. The area of 80 acres included various vegetables and other crops where the Agricultural Society members benefited from various programs to prepare the area for planting. Citizens of the Wilaya of Dema wa Ta'in met the chairman and members of the municipal council in the governorate of North Sharqiya. The meeting discussed establishing interior roads, lighting them, and maintaining some roads. It also reviewed the municipal role, its goals, as well as the proposed plans during this year. The municipal visit included emergency department project in the Wilaya hospital, which will open soon. It also contained the souk in the Wilaya and how to develop it. Enrichment course for Public Relations Commissioners and Scout Media concluded in the Governorate of Muscat. The course is organized by Directorate General of Scouts and Guides in cooperation with Arab Scouts Organization. The 5-day course included training and practical works in the press field. The participants got training in media and press topics as well as field visits for some newspaper institutions. The course aimed to enhance skills and knowledge of the participants in press work field. The lectures discussed some topics such as press release, articles, and e-press. The participants expressed that they got many knowledge, press arts, and public relations work. A seminar entitled My Childhood is Trust was organized by Ibra School for Basic Education in the Governorate of North Sharqiya. It came to shed light on the social responsibility of educational institutions in spreading awareness messages regarding childhood and proper child education. It witnessed a participation from a number of specialists in this field, including parents and teachers. It also focused on the role of family and society in instilling good values and practices among children so as to raise a well-educated generation. The Wilaya of Birbir in the Governorate of Dakhiliya is distinguished by various touristic sites as well as natural, geographical, historical, and archaeological potentials. The Birbir Castle was considered one of the famous and well-known historical buildings in the area. It is surrounded by villages, palm trees, and high towers with a deep-rooted architecture design. It is also visited by tourists from inside and outside the Sultanate. Among the events witnessed by the castle are poetic sessions and Omani singing arts. Still to come, Iran News Bulletin. As Russia reacted to sanctions by imposing an embargo on foods from the West, top restaurants are seeking local delicacy such as Crimean oysters. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Gunmen ambushed a military truck during a nighttime attack in the southern province, killing all 4 soldiers in the vehicle in a raid claimed by Yemen's Al-Qaeda branch. It took place in Houta, a town in the southern Lahej province. Meanwhile, United Nations envoy to Yemen, Jamal bin Omar, said that in terms of his permanent consultations with President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, he discussed with him the abnormal and dominant situation in Yemen and ways to reach a peaceful resolution. He added that he found that President Hadi is adherent to dialogue as a way to resolve disagreement between Yemenis and condemns resorting to violence to achieve political purposes. Bin Omar said that President Hadi asserted his commitment to the reconciliation that saved Yemen in 2011 and said he would abide by any reconciliation based on the negotiations. The UN Security Council is to hold an emergency session later today on the ceasefire deal in eastern Ukraine that is showing tentative signs of taking hold. France and Germany requested the meeting of the 15-member council as Ukraine's military began withdrawing heavy weapons from the front line and fighting with pro-Russian rebels appeared to subside. Fighting with rebels had halted along most of the front line, but there were still clashes in villages around the ruins of Donetsk airport, one of the most fought over prizes in the conflict. 3 government soldiers were killed in war-torn eastern Ukraine over the past 24 hours, the country's military said today, after a 2-day lull in which no fatalities were reported. The latest casualties come after a stuttering truce had finally appeared to take effect, helping staunch the bloodshed that has cost at least 5,800 lives since April 2014. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said Lebanon and Jordan have seen their populations grow exponentially as refugees continue to escape Syria's civil war. Speaking at a meeting of the UN Security Council in New York, Antonio Guterres said almost 2 million Syrian refugees under the age of 18 risk becoming a lost generation. He also said Turkey had become the biggest refugee hosting country in the world. He added, if not addressed, this crisis in the making could have huge consequences for the future, not only of Syria, but of the whole region. More than 3.8 million Syrians are believed to have fled their country in the 4 years since an uprising against President Bashar Assad led to a civil war. The annexation of the Crimean Peninsula by Russia has opened new trading markets for oysters. Here is the report.
A few hundred meters off Crimea's shoreline, this diver is ready to get to work. Equipped with an oxygen bottle, a knife and some baskets, it's a quick 10-minute dive to find what he's looking for.
Today we've brought up mussels and oysters in cages.
A century ago, Black Sea oysters were a delicacy enjoyed by Russia's wealthy elite. But after the Communist Revolution in 1917, the shellfish was considered too aristocratic and production here was banned. Sergei is now reviving the lost tradition. His is the only oyster and mussel farm in Crimea, which was annexed by Russia from Ukraine 1 year ago. He's yet to turn much of a profit, but he's certain his business has a very prosperous future.
With oysters, there's a maximum of 500 attached to each breeding line. So 500 at €2 each makes €1,000 per line.
These oysters are said to be softer and sweeter than those from Europe due to lower levels of iodine in the water. Currently, Sergei only sells his oysters in Crimea, but he's hoping to expand. Last year, Russia reacted to sanctions by imposing an embargo on foods from the West. So the country's top restaurants are seeking new local suppliers, and Sergei's produce is increasingly in demand.
If everything goes the way I want, we could reach an industrial level of production. I could produce up to 1 million oysters and 50 tons of mussels a year.
In the port of Balaclava, close to Sevastopol, Sergei uses his boat he bought in Italy as a makeshift factory to divide up the oysters according to their size.
The large oysters that are ready for the market are sold, and we put the small ones in plastic nests, shaped like sausages, so they can continue to grow and reach maturity.
If Sergei's dream comes true, he will soon operate his business from a proper factory instead of his boat. And as long as sanctions continue, he hopes Russians will redevelop their taste for his homegrown seafood delicacy.
More than 200 people have been killed in North Afghanistan in some of the worst avalanches there for 30 years. Heavy snow is set to last for 2 more days after an unusual dry winter led to fears of drought. Officials warned of an imminent humanitarian emergency in areas most severely hit by the bad weather, with snow sweeping through villages and blocking off-roads. Now for the general weather forecast. Clear to partly cloudy skies will prevail over the governorate of Musandam and the coastal areas of the Sea of Oman and Hajar Mountains, with chances of scattered rainfalls, low temperature and poor visibility due to dust-raising winds in some governorates. Rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with low clouds and fog over the coastal areas of the Arabian Sea. Winds will be northwesterly moderate to active, while along the coast of the Arabian Sea will be southwesterly light to moderate. Seas will be moderate along the coast of the Governorate of Musandam and Sea of Oman with a maximum wave height of 2 meters and will be 3.5 meters at night, while it will be slight to moderate along the rest of the coast with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Omani farmers succeed in using innovative techniques to improve the quality of agricultural products. The United Nations warns that Syrian refugees' plight will lead to a catastrophic situation due to the decrease of humanitarian aid. And Ben Omar continues his efforts to resolve political crisis in Yemen and warns against continuing power struggle. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.